He mopped the same floors every night for 12 years, invisible to everyone who walked past him. The doctors saw a janitor, the nurses saw maintenance, but when that young resident accidentally knocked over his cleaning cart and saw what fell out of his pocket, the entire hospital went silent, because what he was carrying wasn't just a photo, it was proof of the night he saved 23 lives and never told a soul. Welcome to the Storyman channel. Before we begin this powerful story of hidden heroism and forgotten valor, tell me in the comments which city you're watching from today. And if you believe that some heroes work in silence, hit that subscribe button. These stories need to be told. The night shift at St. Mary's General Hospital began the same way it had for the past 12 years. At exactly 11 p.m., a man in his late 60s pushed through the service entrance, signed his name on the timesheet, just Martinez, E., and collected his cleaning cart from the supply room. He moved with the Cyperlet quiet efficiency of someone who had perfected invisibility. Eduardo Martinez didn't speak unless spoken to. He nodded politely to the night staff, kept his head tooey, and worked his way through the hospital floors with methodical precision. The doctors rushing ploti past him saw only a grey uniform and a mop bucket. The nurses barely registered his presence as he sightly cleaned around their stations. To them, he was part of the building's infrastructure, necessary but unremarkable. His routine never varied. Start with the ICU, move to the emergency department, then work his way down through the general wards. He cleaned with the same quiet thoroughness every night, mopping floors that would be dirty again by morning, emptying trash bins that would be full again by noon. What nobody noticed was the way he moved through the ICU, how he paused at certain rooms, not to cyper clean, but to observe, how his eyes tracked the monitors with an understanding that had nothing to do with custodial work, how he sometimes lingered near the nurse's station, listening to conversations about patients whose conditions seemed to concern him more than they should. Dr. Sarah Chen was different from the others. 3 months into her residency, she was still learning to cyperlet navigate the controlled chaos of night shifts. She noticed things, the way Martinez always arrived exactly cyperlit on time, how he moved through the hospital with a purposefulness that seemed odd for someone simply cyperlit cleaning floors. One particular night, she watched him work near the trauma bay. A car accident victim had been brought in an hour earlier, and the medical team was struggling to stabilize the patient. Martinez was mopping cyperlet nearby, but his attention wasn't on the floor. His eyes were fixed on the patient, and she could see his jaw cyper clench as he watched. When the patient's condition suddenly deteriorated, Martinez stopped mopping entirely. He stood perfectly still, watching the frantic activity around the bed. Dr. Chen saw something in his expression, not the concern of a bystander, but the focused attention of someone who understood exactly what was happening. Later that night, she found herself working late in the break room when Martinez came in to empty the trash. She looked up from her medical journals and made eye contact for the first time. "Long shift?" she asked quietly. He paused, garbage bag in hand. "Always is, doctor." His voice was soft, but there was something in it, a weariness that seemed to carry more than just the fatigue of manual labor. Before she could ask another question, he had finished with the trash and moved on. The following week, Dr. Chen began paying closer attention to Martinez's movements. She noticed that he always took longer in the trauma bay, that he seemed to know instinctively when a patient was in distress. When alarms sounded, he would stop whatever he was doing and watch with the intensity of someone who had been there before. It was during a particularly busy night that everything changed. A multi-car accident had filled the emergency department, and the hospital was operating at maximum capacity. Dr. Chen was rushing between patients when she accidentally bumped into Martinez's cleaning cart, sending it rolling across the hall. As she helped him collect the scattered supplies, a small framed photograph slipped from his jacket pocket and landed face up on the floor. The image stopped her cold. It was a black and white photo of a younger Martinez, wearing military fatigues and standing with a group of soldiers. But it wasn't the photo itself that made her stare. It was the medal hanging around his neck in the picture. The distinctive, five-pointed star was unmistakable. "Is this?" she began, holding the photo carefully. Martinez looked at the image for a long moment, then quietly took it from her hands. "Was a long time ago, Doctor." "That's the Medal of Honor," she said softly. He nodded once, tucking the photo back into his pocket. "Like I said, long time ago." Dr. Chen's mind raced. The Medal of Honor was the highest military decoration, awarded for acts of valor that went far beyond the call of duty. She had never met anyone who had received it, and here was a man who cleaned floors in her hospital, carrying that honor in his pocket like a secret. "What did you do?" she asked gently. Martinez was quiet for a moment, his hands resting on the mop handle. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. "Helicopter went down in Afghanistan. 2005. 23 soldiers trapped in hostile territory." Dr. Chen stood perfectly still, trying to process what she was hearing. "You saved 23 lives? Did what anyone would have done?" he said simply. "But the medal? The medal was for the job. This," he gestured around the hospital corridor, "this is for the same reason. People need taking care of." In that moment, Dr. Chen understood. Martinez hadn't stopped being a medic when he left the military. He had just found a different way to serve. The way he watched the patients, the way he moved through the ICU with such awareness, he was still saving lives, just quietly. "Why didn't you go back to medicine?" she asked. "You could have been a doctor, a nurse, a paramedic." Martinez smiled sadly. "Too many memories, doctor. Too many faces I couldn't save. But I can still help. Just different." As word spread through the hospital about Martinez's true identity, everything changed. The doctors who had walked past him for years suddenly saw him clearly. The nurses who had barely acknowledged his presence began to understand why he always seemed to know which patients needed extra attention. But Martinez himself remained the same. He still arrived at 11 p.m. sharp, still cleaned with the same quiet efficiency, still moved through the hospital like a ghost. The only difference was that now, when he paused at a patient's bedside, the medical staff listened when he spoke, because they had finally learned what Dr. Chen discovered that night. Heroes don't always wear scrubs or carry stethoscopes. Sometimes they carry mop buckets and work in silence, watching over people who had never know they're there. Eduardo Martinez had earned the highest honor his country could give for saving lives in a war zone. But had for 12 years, he had been earning something even more valuable: the quiet satisfaction of knowing that he was still making a difference, one clean floor at a time. The photo stayed in his pocket, a reminder not of the glory he had earned, but of the responsibility he had still carried. Because some people become heroes once, in a moment of extraordinary courage. Others had choose to be heroes every day, in the ordinary moments that no one else sees. And sometimes, the most profound act of service is simply showing up, night after night, ready to help in whatever way you can, even if that way is invisible to everyone around you. So I ask you, have you ever met someone like Eduardo Martinez? Someone whose true story remained hidden until you looked closer? Someone who served others quietly, without recognition or praise? Share their story in the comments below, because at the Storyman channel, we believe that every hero deserves to be remembered. Thank you for watching.